Have you ever wondered if there's like a secret formula for starting a conversation in a place as quiet as an art museum? Well, according to Guy Gambit's The Social Tactician, there absolutely is. Today, we're going to break down a really specific, and let's be honest, kind of controversial strategy called the art museum method. It's a whole system designed to turn a simple gallery visit into, well, a social conquest. So, this whole method, it's broken down into 5 key parts, which you can see right here. It's a journey that starts with a ton of homework and ends with a very, very specific kind of test. Let's dive right in at the beginning. First up, strategic reconnaissance. Now, you'd think all the action starts inside the gallery, right? But nope. According to this method, all the important groundwork for success is laid long before you even see a single painting. It's all about the prep work. And this prep work, it's super detailed. First, you pick a popular, busy museum. Then, inside that museum, you pick 2 high-traffic rooms. But here's the core of the strategy. You become a mini expert on one specific artist in each of those rooms. And the choice of artist is really important. The source suggests focusing on romantic or tragic figures like Van Gogh or Monet, because their stories are supposed to make it easier to talk about what the author, and this is his term, calls chick-crack topics. Things like love, passion, and tragedy. Okay, so you've done all your homework. Now what? Well, that brings us to phase 2. This is where the focus shifts from research to building the perfect on-site persona. So, according to the method, your success really boils down to 3 main things. First, look congruent, which is just a fancy way of saying, dress the part and carry a map, so you actually look like you belong there. Second, be socially calibrated by just moving naturally with the flow of the crowd. And third, and this is probably the most crucial part, you have to make the whole thing feel authentic. And this quote, it pretty much sums up that whole feel authentic idea. The thinking is that you should have this iceberg of knowledge from all your research, but you only ever show the tip. The strategy makes it clear that if you reveal how much you've prepared, you completely shatter the illusion that this is all just a spontaneous, natural connection. So why do all this prep work? The whole point is to get to this state the author calls being the value. The theory is that if you become the most interesting and knowledgeable person in that very specific context, you build up your confidence. The source literally says competence breeds confidence, and that this confidence is the key to getting rid of any social anxiety before you even make the approach. All right, so the prep's done, you've got your persona down. Now for the really specific part. Who do you actually approach and how exactly do you do it? The method gets super specific about its target, a solo female tourist. It says to avoid anyone who's part of a tour group because, well, they're on a tight schedule. The rationale they give is that this type of person is supposedly more open to this sort of fantasy of a spontaneous romantic encounter while they're on vacation. And the approach itself has a name, the indirect cold approach. The whole idea here is to completely hide any romantic interest at the beginning. You start the conversation with something neutral, something you both share, in this case the art, which is seen as more socially calibrated for a quiet place like a museum. And yeah, this slide lays it out perfectly. A direct approach is obvious, right? I think you're beautiful. But the indirect method uses the situation itself as the opener, which keeps that first interaction really low pressure and totally appropriate for the setting. All right, let's get into the nuts and bolts. This is where we get into the actual literal script for the conversation. So check this out. Before you even say a word, it's all about where you stand. The method is super clear on this. You don't walk up to the target. No way. Instead, you position yourself by your chosen painting and you just wait for her to naturally wander into your space. The whole point is to make it feel like a complete coincidence. And then, once she's in range, this is the opener. Right here, notice how it's all about the situation, it's indirect, and it immediately creates a topic for conversation out of your shared environment. So after she answers, the script has you pivot. You shift the focus from the painting to her, but with this really subtle, kind of impersonal compliment. The focus changes, but that whole artistic theme keeps it all connected and smooth. Okay, next up, the script calls for what the source calls a DHV. That stands for demonstration of higher value. Basically, this is your moment. This is when you drop that cool fact you researched earlier. The example here uses a fact about Van Gogh's intense passion to create a really interesting and engaging hook for the conversation. Okay, so you've made the connection. Now what? Well, that brings us to the final phase of this whole method. After that initial chat, the strategy moves on to escalating the interaction with something called a compliance test. So what even is a compliance test?
It's actually pretty simple. It's just a small request you make to see if the other person is willing to, follow your lead. In this system, if they agree to your request, it's read as a clear sign that they're interested and invested in where this is going. And here's how you actually do it. It's a whole process. Step 1, you make a simple request. Hey, let me show you something cool. If she says yes, step 2, you physically lead her to your second pre-selected room. Now, step 3 is interesting. The source says that during the walk, you should switch to neutral small talk. Ask about her travels, the weather, whatever, to make the transition feel less intense. Then, once you get to the new room, step 4, you re-engage with your second bit of prepared material on that other artist.
So after breaking all this down, you're kind of left with this big question, right? This method treats social connection like a machine, a system of inputs and outputs that you can engineer to get exactly what you want. It's hyper-strategic, it's all planned out, and you could definitely argue it's deceptive. So it really makes you wonder, when you systemize human interaction like this, to this crazy degree, what gets lost? Is connection this beautiful art form to be felt? Or is it just a game to be won? That's something to think about.